Had to cut out the cancer. The cancer was Iran with a nuclear weapon, and we've cut it out. Now we're going to finish it off. As we rebuild the greatest economy in history, a top priority must be to bring down the cost of living. And we were doing that, and we are doing that at a record clip.
President Trump Wednesday talking about a full plate of issues to deal with, foreign and domestic. Joining us now here on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, thanks for the time.
Thanks, Brett. Welcome back to the Capitol.
Thank you. I'm going to start domestic. Is there a solution for this partial government shutdown that is causing so much pain for TSA workers first, but also for travelers all across the country?
Yeah, it's a great frustration for us in Congress. Just about an hour ago, Democrats voted for the third time in the House not to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Remember, it's the third largest department of government. It has 10 agencies beneath it, and those agencies keep Americans safe. So it's not just TSA, it's also FEMA and the Coast Guard and all these other bioterrorism issues and cybersecurity, all the rest. And they're endangering American lives. People are actually dying because of this, and they seem not to care. It's very frustrating for us. We hope there's an end soon.
Well, Republicans say Democrats are moving the goalposts. Democrats say the president is adding things to the mix. They have band together. They have a hard line. You heard Senator Elizabeth Warren in that piece saying they're not funding ICE. They need these reforms. How do you get to yes? Because the pain is being felt. I know it's a political thing, who's to blame, but how do you get it solved?
Well, the ball has been in the Senate's court for some time. We're hearing good things this afternoon. I mean, right before we walked onto the set to talk today, we hear that they may be coming to some sort of resolution. We certainly hope that happens. The president has been over backwards. They've tried to institute reforms. They have instituted reforms. We have a new secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. I'm not sure what more they could ask other than the two outrageous requirements that they put on the table, Democrats. They want to unmask ICE agents in these hostile environments where they can be doxxed and their families targeted. And they want us to add a warrant requirement before anyone is deported. Those things aren't workable. They can't be done, so it's not something the president can give on.
Here's the Hill. GOP cracks in Senate begin to show in DHS shutdown fight. While Republicans feel the shutdown was forced by Democrats, they also know their party owns the White House and both majorities in Congress and could suffer the blame, particularly amid the war with Iran that is already stoking political controversy. Is there a point here that something else changes, like there is just a clean bill for funding TSA?
Well, we've done that. I mean, we have actually funded it 3 times in the House, most recently an hour ago. Every Democrat in the House, except for 4, voted no. And they voted to inflict this pain. If you're waiting in a line at the airport, it's because Democrats are refusing to fund the government. Why? This is the important point, Brett. They want to prevent the deportation of criminal illegal aliens. That's what's at stake. They don't want the enforcement component of ICE at all. That's their position.
Is there something the president can do? He's not been directly involved, has he, as far as making phone calls, pushing people? Is there something the president could do, first of all, on the executive side, executive orders? And secondly, is there some kind of deal that he could do?
Well, look, he and the administration have been over backwards in offering concessions. They have been negotiating in good faith. It's the Democrats who have moved the ball. And it sounds like a partisan blame game, but this is quite literally what's happened. You can look at the voting record. I suggested today after the vote, we had to blow up the tally sheet on the vote this afternoon and put it in every airport terminal around America to show them Democrats voted no, every Republican voted yes. We've done it 3 times in the House. They've tried to do it in the Senate, but Chuck Schumer is holding that up.
The frustration's real. I know you hear it from constituents. I know you hear it from other lawmakers. We asked people to weigh in on X. Stephen Klum typed up, will Speaker Johnson make a motion to suspend privileges for House and Senate members to get in front of the line when they go through TSA checkpoints when flying?
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody would be crazy to do that right now. Sometimes they do that for security purposes for members, but I don't think anybody's engaging in that practice right now. Sure, we should ban.
Cornyn had a bill, and there might be a bill over here.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Let's see, bars too low. Why do politicians continue to collect salaries, though not doing their jobs, as other federal workers have been going for weeks with no pay while working?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, during the shutdowns, we typically suspend our pay. We did that in the fall when the Democrats had the longest shutdown in U.S. history. This is now the second longest. It's a partial shutdown, but it's one that really hurts people, and I think members of Congress need to do their job. I'll say in the House, we've done this 3 times. Homeland Security, again, has been funded 3 times, and it's the Senate Democrats who are holding it up.
Also in the House, you passed the Save America Act.
Yes.
And, there's a lot of push on the Republican Party, inside the Republican Party, and with voters to get that. Polls show that. I asked Senator Thune about that the last time I was up here. Take a listen. Is this, legislating, or are you kind of just messaging for the election?
Well, it's legislating. I mean, actually, if you look at the substance of the policy, this is about safe and secure and elections in this country, and making sure that we have an election process that is actually with the right people, not just the illegals who are in this country have an opportunity to vote.
But he was clear in that interview, Mr. Speaker, that he doesn't have the votes. He doesn't have the votes for the talking filibuster. He doesn't have the votes to bust the filibuster. He doesn't have the votes for the Save America Act. Is there anything that you can do or that is going to be done with that piece of legislation?
We've done everything in the House. It's very frustrating for us. John Thune, Leader Thune, has a tough situation on his hands. We passed it 3 times in the House, the SAVE Act twice, last Congress, this Congress, and now the Save America Act. All we're talking about is proof of citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID when you do that. It's a 90-10 issue in the country. 70% of Democrats think that that is a reasonable restriction on voting. And yet, he cannot get Democrats in the Senate to go along with it.
But why is that? Why? Why do you think it's happening?
Well, you know my theory. It's because they count on cheating. They count on illegals voting. They count on people coming in who are not supposed to vote in our elections. It's quite clear. Why else would Chuck Schumer and the Democrats oppose a measure that is so wildly popular with the people and such a measure of common sense?
So what's your recommendation for Senator Thune?
I wish I could solve that quandary. I don't know. The filibuster is holding them back, and he doesn't have the vote total to get it done, and it's such a frustration to us. We might be able to break it apart and do individual pieces, but remember—
reconciliation?
Well, in some form. I mean, the problem in getting into reconciliation is you have to reconcile the budget, so it's got to be a fiscal matter. There may be a way to do that. We're looking at every possible option because they're exactly right. The president's right. Election integrity is a critical issue to maintain a constitutional republic. We've got to ensure it at any cost.
You heard some of those polls that Jackie talked about, new Fox News polls. The president doesn't love Fox News polls, but these polls track with other polls that we're watching. How do you feel about the way things are going in the U.S.? Satisfied now, 36. Dissatisfied, 64. The approval of President Trump on inflation and the economy down to 28 and 34%. Those are tough numbers, and you're a little way away from a midterm, but they're real.
They're real. The president was on the previous program with the 5, and he was talking about the 100% support he has in MAGA, and those are CNN polls showing that. Look, those numbers are not surprising right now because there's a lot of frustration in the country about the wait times at TSA, about gas prices. So much of this is, and about the war, and the gas prices and the conflict in Iran are directly related. That is going to resolve soon. We very much believe that. We're very hopeful about that. And when it does, we get right back to the growing economy. Because remember, we did the one big beautiful bill, the working families tax cut. We did that so that people would have bigger paychecks and bigger tax refunds. That's what they will be experiencing again as soon as the dust settles over this conflict.
You say it's going to resolve soon. Like, what is your level of confidence of that? We heard today the president's delaying till April 6th, this next shoe to drop in Iran, based on how negotiations are going. There's a lot of public skepticism about all that. The president talked about it at length today at the cabinet meeting. What's your confidence that it's going to resolve soon?
Well, I'm tracking this hourly. I think the talks are going constructively and well. I think Iran has gotten the message. The president's intention is to complete that mission, that operation, which was limited in scope in its mission, to get it done and get out of there as quickly as possible. I think a lot of our international partners will step up and assist us with the Strait of Hormuz issue. That's a big thing. When we get that done, and I think it will happen quickly, it's in the world's interest to do it. It's certainly in America's, and we can get back to the economic issues, which is our central focus.
You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump says the U.S. is not affected by the closure. Here's what he said. Take a listen.
The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not affected by this.
So that's what he said. The national average of gas prices currently at $3.98, month ago $2.98, year ago $3.15. That's definitely true for oil, the percentage that goes through the strait for the U.S. But obviously a lot of other countries get large percentages that go through the strait, and that affects the trade that we do with them and what the cost is of those items. Plus, about 50% of the world's urea exports go through the strait. That's fertilizer.
Yes.
That's a big deal for farmers.
Yeah, it's
How
a big deal.
concerned are you about this?
We're concerned, and that's why we've got to get resolved quickly. Our farmers have had a tough road to hoe. We're trying to get the Farm Bill done here. We're going to need Democrats to help us on that, by the way, and we hope that they will. But we can get control back over the price of fertilizer, the price of fuel, if we get that straightened out. And I think, again, our Arab neighbors, our friends in the region, have a direct interest. That's their neighborhood, so to speak. And all of our NATO allies do as well, because it's about the stability of oil prices worldwide. What the president said is not inaccurate. It's just all these things can be true at the same time.
There's all this talk about whether soldiers are going to take Karg Island or elsewhere. What do you say to lawmakers who say, if that happens, that definitely is when you would need AUMF, an authorization for the use of military force?
We'll have to see how it shakes out. The intention and the hope is that we're not going to have boots on the ground in that situation over there. I think we can get this resolved without it. I think the leaders of Iran need to take notice of this, the president's resolve and our ability. We have a buildup of troops there because we're trying to point that out to them, and I think it'll have the desired effect. It should not be necessary. I hope that it's not, and I hope this resolves soon. That's the desire of Congress, again, so we don't have to take further action. We're not yet to the 60-day mark of this operation. The president's well within his legal authority to do this. And he did it as a defensive strike because of an imminent threat, and that's what we had to do.
Well, that's important about the 60 days. You know, I'm not saying that this is happening, but it's a possibility, an option for the president to consider. Sure. Congresswoman Nancy Mace came out of a classified briefing and seemed to reveal some of what was reportedly discussed about possible ground operations in Iran. There's people who ask, why should the administration brief Congress when Congress can't keep a secret? Are there any punishments for Congresswoman Mace in this instance?
Well, it is not lawful to leak classified information. I'm not suggesting that's what Nancy did there, but it is a problem. I mean, we had a big briefing for all House members in the Congressional Auditorium, and it's a lower level of classification because some of these things are so sensitive, and there is a breach of trust here. And that's a problem for the institution and something we need to address in the long run, because we've got to get back to these. Secrecy is important, especially at a time of international conflict.
Quickly, I want to talk about the midterms.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about before how slim your majority is. We get it.
Just one
In fact,
vote.
the president said just last hour he feels for you.
Right.
With some of the Republicans you have to deal with. The Mar-a-Lago flip. Democrats win the Trump hometown Florida House district. This is a state house race. Emily Gregory defeated Trump-endorsed GOP state house candidate in a hotly contested race. The president, obviously, in his backyard, and he won that district overwhelmingly. As you look at that, do you see a canary in the coal mine about November?
I don't at all. In fact, I talked with the president about this after that election result came in, and his team. These special elections are a one-off, and they're anomalies. That's why we call them special. There was circumstances in that race at the state legislative level not involved with Congress. I am very bullish about November, very bullish about the midterms.
Even right now,
Absolutely.
even looking at everything that's coming up.
Absolutely right. And I give you a very boring 90-minute slideshow, Brett, to prove to you all the reasons
think
we're
we
going to
have
win.
90 minutes,
We don't
but-
have it. But look, it summarizes us having a great record to run on. Promises made, promises kept. The big, beautiful bill, Working Families Tax Cut, is going to be working for middle and lower class earners, and they'll feel the effects of that and know they made the right decision, because we had a big demographic shift in 2024, and I think we hold those voters. We got better candidates. We have more funding right now. We have a president who is running like he is on the ballot, and he is out doing rallies around the country and rallying the base. We're going to have a midterm convention for the first time in history in September, right before early voting, to parade all of these stars in our great record across the stage. I feel very good about this. I believe we're going to defy history and grow the Republican majority in the House.
But a couple of things have to happen. The war, you call it a war or a conflict?
Conflict.
Conflict needs to be over.
Yes, and I think it will be. I think it will be in due time, yeah.
And gas prices and inflation needs to come down.
Yeah, and those are directly related, because you get the Iran conflict resolved, and I think that comes right back to planet Earth.
Mr. Speaker, we appreciate your time. Thanks for the hospitality.
Thanks a lot. Great to have you, as always.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.